Welcome to the C.A.N Report, your go-to source for the latest updates, insights, and stories from Amador Fire. Serving over 500 square miles from the vineyards in the valley to the snow-capped Sierras, our combination department staffs 9 stations and puts 6 engines on the road every single day. Backed by a team of dedicated professionals and more than 30 committed volunteers, we're here to protect, serve, and engage with our community. From fire safety tips to behind-the-scenes action, we're here to keep you informed. I'm your host, Kayla Dale, Public Information Officer for Amador Fire. Today, I'm sitting down with our Fire Chief, Robert Withrow, for a sneak peek into what 2025 has in store. From new initiatives to community engagement, there's a lot to cover, so let's dive in. Well, good morning and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the C.A.N Report. And happy February. I thought I'd kick off this episode no better way than to interview the leader of our organization, Fire Chief Robert Withrow. And to start off, I just want to deep dive, Chief, into your background and your experience to just give an overview to all the listeners of how you got to the position you are in today as Fire Chief with Amador Fire.
So I started 34 years ago. I started as a volunteer firefighter, actually volunteered here with Amador Fire, and I live right on the border, so I was able to volunteer with Amador and a small district in El Dorado County called the Pioneer Fire Protection District. And that volunteer position evolved into a part-time position. I was actually a seasonal firefighter for a while with then CDF. I did that for a couple seasons here in Amador County. Mid-90s, I was hired full-time by Pioneer as a firefighter EMT. I did that for about 4 years, and then Pioneer entered into an agreement with then CDF. I went back to CDF and worked my way up through the ranks from there. And I retired from CDF here a little over 2 years ago as a division chief. My last assignment was here in Amador County, responsible for CAL FIRE operations in Amador County and southern Sacramento County. After that, I was the fire chief for a short time for a small fire district, Lockwood. And then through that, I worked into a deputy chief job here with Amador Fire. Did that for about, half a year maybe. And then was very fortunate to become appointed fire chief in May of 2023.
And that's an extensive career and a lot of experience that you've had in that 30 plus years of working every rank from volunteer to now fire chief. Yeah. And now that you have 2 years under your belt with Amador Fire, I have to believe that has changed a lot with how you look at things in terms of vision for leading a team. And so what are some of your visions for leading Amador Fire? You know, with all the experience that you have, we're a combination department. So we have our volunteers, we have our paid staff. How do you see that moving forward?
Well, I got to say this. I am grateful to have the background that I have. It's given me a solid foundation to work from. However, being responsible for the district now as fire chief, I feel like I was prepared for that, but you never really know the assignment until you're in it and you're fulfilling that role. And I just want to touch on something that I feel very strongly about. To be qualified for anything, whether it's a position in the incident command system, a rank, whatever. There's two pieces to that puzzle. One piece is the education side of it, the formal training. The other piece is getting the experience now performing in that discipline. Mm-hmm. And that's something I'm very grateful for. Having worked every single rank and spending a number of years in each rank has been very helpful to me being here, because it's given me the confidence to understand that I don't have all the answers. I am still learning, and I'm going to continue to learn. And I think when you're newer and younger, those shortcomings or deficiencies become insecurities. And I'm, wise enough to know that just comes with the territory. You don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to have. But getting to my vision for Amador Fire, I've always looked at Amador Fire as a district with just tremendous potential, not only to be a great place to work, but has an opportunity to really serve the community. You know, we've got some real diversity that a lot of agencies don't have. As you stated a little bit ago, we are a combination department. So our staffing consists of full-time career personnel and volunteer personnel. And there can be some challenges with meshing the two. Mm-hmm. But we don't have that here. We have a long history of being a combination department. And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we've got a dedicated group of career staff, and equally proud of our dedicated group of community volunteers. So my vision for Amador Fire can be placed into three categories, I guess. And I just learned this from an interview with the head coach, and I thought that's a nice way to package this all up. The first part of that is our branding. We got to continue to work to get our name out there and not be arrogant about that. Not that we're, taking over the county or any of those things. Quite the contrary. Frankly, we have enough work to do right here with our own organization, right? But just getting our name out there, getting that familiarity, letting our community know that, hey, we are here for you. This is who we are. This is where your tax dollars go. So branding is number one. Number two is our culture. The culture in the fire service is changing and evolving. And without going on too long, I just want to say we get that wrong. We're supervising and leading a different culture today than it was when I started 30 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of examples that are out there. And what I'll say is we as leaders, as fire chiefs, company officers, etc., we have to adapt our leadership style to motivate that culture because that's what we have. Those are the tools we're handed. And I could go on and on about that. And I hope there's an opportunity someday to talk about that. But there's a lot of negativity about today's youth and people in the fire service. And though maybe some of that's true, I know certainly, when my generation came in the fire service, the generation before us was critical. And I think that's just human nature and that'll continue. But there's a lot of positive things about this generation too. And that's where we need to focus as today's leaders is how do we get the most out of these people? What does it take to motivate this group? And there's been a lot of studies and books written and all those things. And I just think our culture is super important to the agency and that culture has to evolve. We're always centered in public service. We're always centered in public safety. That's what we're here for. One of the things I like about the fire department is we truly are a government entity where the community gets something for their money, if you will. They see a direct benefit, and I'm very proud of that. So branding, our culture, and then finally, as we solidify those two components, the final piece of that is building our team, making sure we're hiring the right people, not just people that meet the minimum qualifications or fit into that box of being a public servant, a firefighter, but also they fit our culture. They understand our communities and what we're all about. So branding, culture, and hiring is my vision for Amador Fire moving forward, that we focus in those three areas. There's other components to that, but I think that's a nice way of summing it up.
Yeah. I think too, something that is really special about Amador Fire and that being a member myself that I love about Amador Fire is that we take that really seriously. We take the being transparent with the community seriously. We take making sure our crews are connected and know what's happening very seriously. And that's an extent of your leadership and your vision of how we make that happen. There's so many ways we can go moving forward into 2025 of how we can continue to share those, visions with the community, the branding, and, the troops being connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think I appreciate that, but that is absolutely a team effort. And I think you have kind of led the charge, you have absolutely led the charge on getting us connected with our communities. I mean, we did, I think you told me over 280 community-based events last year. And that's everything from meeting with communities in their living room to talk about Firewise to, public education events in different schools, to hauling Santa Claus around neighborhoods. I mean, and that's huge. That's what we should be doing. And you talked about transparency, Kayla, and I just say the importance of that is critical. And something that is not lost on me is our funding comes from our community. And that's not Amador Fire's money or Rob Withrow's money. That's the community's money. And I know it's easy to say, well, we got to be responsible with that. And we do. But we also got to be transparent. And when you're transparent and you're responsible, it's very easy to explain what we're doing with tax money.
Right.
And that community engagement, and those three things make that a lot easier to do and set us up for success in the future.
And you mentioned about the culture change in the fire service. And myself, I've been in the fire service for 10 years. I came from a different agency, but what I have seen, even just in the last 3 to 4 years, maybe even 2 to 3 years, is the community itself that we serve is so hungry for information, not just about fire preparedness, but what our fire department is doing or what their fire department is doing.
Well put.
And, yes, I think we do a great job of that, but it's very interesting to me. We've had just this week multiple people come to the counter asking for information because they want to hold their own community meetings on their street, or we have people holding potlucks just to connect with their neighbors. And I think that's a big culture change that we're seeing of, from the social media platforms with sharing information. We're very good at that. We understand the importance of sharing vetted, accurate information timely. However, people are missing that human connection. And something that I love about Amador Fire is that we recognize that and we strive to have that human connection, whether it's fire preparedness, whether it's just knowing your fire department.
Yeah, no, well said. I agree. That is important. And I think, one more piece to add on to that is there's a lot of, whether intentional or unintentional can be debated, but a lot of fear mongering that goes on in the media, especially in the mass media markets. And I am just opposed to that. I mean, yes, there are some dangers that come with living in a high fire danger area. Absolutely. And there are some areas and some things that should just be avoided completely because they just should, right?
Right.
But most of our communities are okay if the community does their diligence, hardens their homes, can't stress that enough, defensible space, all those things we hear about. And then the other piece of that is knowing your neighbors and taking some responsibility for your own welfare, your own community. And I do agree with you. We're seeing that more and more. And I think that I find that very fulfilling, and I'm glad that's occurring.
Yeah. Okay, so Chief, looking ahead into 2025, I just want to take a quick moment to talk about the strategic plan committee. Since we're focusing on community, I think it's important to note to people listening that this committee plays a key role in shaping the vision for our department. So they're basically creating a roadmap for the next 5 years for Amador Fire. And to build this plan, we brought in community members of our own department, volunteers, chief officers, and admin staff just to collaborate on creating this plan. And something that I really admire is Amador Fire putting ourselves in a vulnerable position, or could be putting ourselves in a vulnerable position, where we are asking for constructive criticism. We're identifying our challenges, our shortcomings, our wins, our successes to this group so they can help better build this roadmap for success going into the next 5 years. And I just really, like I said, I really admire that, because it's this kind of collaboration that will help us be successful in years ahead, keeping the natural and engaging vision for our community, which is something that Amador Fire continues to strive to want and have.
Having a plan is critical for our success. We've got to have a plan. We've got to be on the same page. When I first got here, there was some pressure put on me that, hey, we need a strategic plan, and when are you going to do that, and this, that, and the other. And I agree with that, and I appreciate that pressure. But the piece that was missing is I wanted to have my feet on the ground a little bit. I'd love to be in this role, at least have a year under my belt to really understand the department. Again, prior to that, I was more of an outside observer, and you don't really see all of it, right, until you start looking behind the curtains, so to speak. So once I felt comfortable, we had our feet on the ground. We built a committee. We solicited volunteers. In our communities, in our leadership ranks, our line staff, both career and volunteer. And I think we've assembled a really effective team that includes organized labor, community members, so on and so forth. From that, we're going to get the intel we need to make good decisions to guide us moving forward. So we're taking care of our people, our members, taking care of our communities, and we're all staying focused on the same page. Strategic plans sometimes aren't worth the paper they're written on. Either they have all these grand ideas, but there's no funding to match it, or the strategic plan is just where the fire chief wants to go, or where labor wants to go, or whatever. But when you blend all of that together, you match it to your financial resources, you match that plan to your community needs, it's a roadmap for success. And that's my hope for this plan. We've met a few times. I'm very encouraged by the involvement, the motivation. And I think I hope we're on the right path. I feel like we are. And we can certainly, evolve and change if we need to. But my goal is by the end of this year, we have a rock solid plan that everybody's got some buy-in. Everybody had a chance to voice their opinions, concerns, ideas, and that'll guide us moving forward.
Yeah. And something that you just touched on is that there's different departments that do strategic plans and have glorious plans for their departments for the future. But something that I admire in a leader, and you specifically for this plan, is that you waited to create this plan, or to start the process of creating this plan, so you could get a vision, so you could understand what the department's needs are and actions are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you for that. That was hard, and I know I took some heat for that a little bit from labor. Not really from our electeds. I think they understood my position, but yeah, I'm glad we did that too. And that is something I've learned over time, is it's important to, when you take on a new role, it's important to take a little time to really understand it, understand the players, the old SWOT analysis, right? You kind of go through that. So, yeah. But I'm very excited about having a solid plan. I'm excited about working for the district. I mean, this is, to me, an extremely flattering position. My family lives here. My friends live here. To have a part of serving those people and how deep my roots are, I'm just very humbled and flattered to be in this role.
Chief, there's something that I truly admire about Amador County, and it's this strong sense of community. There's this undeniable spirit of people looking out to help one another. And I think the best example I can give of that is this incredible group of volunteers who dedicate their time to serve this county and this community, whether it's responding to emergencies, supporting fire crews, or simply being a helping hand when we need it. So I just want to talk now about our volunteer program, us being a combination department, and explaining the staffing model that Amador Fire uses.
I think that's important for our community to understand, and even some of our members need to understand this. Right now, today, we staff 6 engine companies every day, 24/7 with career staff. In the next few months, that'll bump up to 7. This very station we're at is currently staffed solely by volunteers, and in the near future, we'll have a duty crew here as well. So we're going to run about 10 to 12 calls every day, and that ranges, like every other fire department, from medical aids, traffic accidents, fires, etc. The foundation of our emergency response are those staffed engines. Mm-hmm. They handle, 80 to 90% of our call volume. When we get outside of that range, when we start getting fires, multiple calls, larger incidents, etc., that's where our volunteer force comes into play. That's not to say our volunteers aren't responding to those 10 or 12 calls a day. I'm just saying one of the benefits of having a deep pool of trained, qualified volunteers is our staffing can expand and contract based on the need. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud of that model. We had a pretty serious wildland fire, what could have been a very serious fire. This past fire season, the Tiger incident was in, as you know, one of the worst locations we can have a fire in this county. And thanks to the hard work of many people, that didn't happen. It was held to a couple acres, and I'm very proud of that, thankful for that. But Amador Fire alone on that one incident was able to staff 10 engines and 5 water tenders, mm-hmm. in addition to our overhead. Mm-hmm. We're only about, when you combine everybody, we're 65, 70 people strong. That's counting, the girls in the office, our prevention, you and me, and, our BCs. So for an agency that size to put that much equipment on the road, you're not going to do that with just career staff. Right. You need that volunteer force. And I'm very, very proud of our volunteer program, equally proud of our career staff. And I think that staffing model works well for us. And I honestly don't see that changing, certainly not in my lifetime. I'm sure someday things will evolve and change, but the volunteer fire service is very much alive, and I hope someday we get a chance to really focus on that. Mm-hmm. I feel very passionate about it. It's very much alive. It just takes work, mm-hmm. and I can chase that rabbit for a long time. But yeah, that's our staffing model. That's how we break it down. I think it's important also to understand, at the end of the day, much like the Army, they say everybody in the Army, from the generals on down, are at the end of the day riflemen, right? Same thing here. We're all firefighters, whether we're paid, volunteer, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're here to serve the public and do our best to take care of business when the time comes.
And I have to say, there's nothing more fulfilling than hearing when we have multiple incidents going on in the county or one large incident, hearing our volunteers come up on the radio, backfilling stations, grabbing pieces of equipment to respond. An example of that was, I think back in August, we had 4 incidents within a 45-minute period. And we just, over the radio, it was like things are getting done. People are getting to where they need to be. And we maintained staffing at all of our stations, even with personnel on scene of these emergencies.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the point. Yeah, I agree. Well said. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, we also obviously, like everybody in California, we rely heavily on mutual aid. And we're very blessed with some outstanding cooperators in this county, other local government and other government entities that we respond with day in and day out. But certainly our volunteers are a huge part of that. So,
yeah. And I want to talk about this podcast in particular, being our first episode. We're kind of covering a lot of different topics here, but I think we have to in order to give an overview of who Amador Fire is, what our mission is, what our goals are, and what our vision is moving forward. And so moving forward with that, we just talked about volunteer could be a whole episode in itself.
Yeah, I hope it is.
And, some other things like Swiftwater Rescue in 2024, we started, our Swiftwater Rescue team in conjunction with the Amador County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, which is a huge step for us. Our jurisdiction sadly has a handful of Swiftwater related emergencies every year. And though we've always had people trained and equipped, we never really organized that. And that was one of those puzzle pieces that just need to be plugged in. And we have a great relationship with the Amador County Sheriff, Gary Redmond, and his staff. And by us blending those two groups, now we have a formal Swiftwater rescue team that is staffed and available for immediate response 24/7. And yeah, that's a good point. That's something we can certainly talk about.
Amador Fire covers just over 500 square miles. And I know we've covered a lot in this podcast, like we talked about. And there's so many incredible successes that we have going. But it's also important to note that we are actively working on expanding even more from that, from a ladder truck, a new fire station, continuing to grow our trusted and proven volunteer force. And I just have to say, it's incredibly fulfilling to be part of a department that, steps up for its community and is here to honor and contribute to something so vital in Amador County, being fire safety, protecting life and property.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the diversity too. 1 minute you're on a grass fire on the valley floor, and then an hour later you're up in the mountains in the timber, and that translates into traffic accidents and structure fires and the challenges that come in the different geographic areas. The snow, as you know, is a game changer. It makes everything more complicated. And then certainly, the wildfire season, those dynamics are different depending on your geographic location, elevations, and all that.
And speaking of the diversity of our county, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about our new ladder truck. It's very exciting, and I'll let you kind of deep dive into the purpose of the ladder truck and how it's going to benefit Amador Fire.
So I think most people understand, but for those that don't, there's two, I would say, general categories that fire apparatus fall into. You have engines, which are what you think of when you think of a fire engine. They've got water and hose and those tools on them. Then we have ladder trucks. It's just like it sounds. They have ladders and typically an aerial ladder device mounted to them. So what we've been able to accomplish through our relationship with the Jackson Rancheria, they were extremely generous and kind enough to purchase our first ladder truck for us. This is the first one we've ever fully put into service. We've had some cooperative agreements and things in the past that worked out very well, but we've evolved to a point now where we need our own staff truck company. So that's going to be a game changer for us on multiple fronts. Well, Station 116 right now, we currently staff 2 engine companies. Once our truck is delivered sometime in the next year and a half, Lord willing, we'll staff an engine company and a truck company out of 116. 116 is centrally located in our district. It can get down to the Martell commercial corridor, where we have a lot of commercial buildings and businesses. It can head up Highway 88, where we have some limited commercial buildings, but we do have some commercial occupancies up there. So it's in a great location. And more importantly, it's where one of our largest life threats are, right there at the Rancheria. We have a 4-story hotel. And right now, we can certainly evacuate people out of there. And there's a lot of things in place to do that with mutual aid, et cetera. But having our own truck company that's staffed on site is going to make that much more efficient. So it's going to change our staffing model. It's going to change our operation on the fire ground. One of the things that I'm adamant about is we get outside the county for that training. There's some formal truck company academies in the state of California, and we're exploring those and where to send our members. Again, there's two pieces to being qualified, right? The education piece and the experience piece. And we're going to have to go outside the county to get both of those. Right. But I look forward to it. That's not only for our members that are staffing the trucks, but for us as chief officers. My experience with ladder trucks is limited. They are very effective. I'm excited to have it, but I want to make sure that our command staff is using that company appropriately and taking full advantage of it.
An example of the ladder truck where we could have used it or it would have been a help is the dollar store call we had a couple months ago.
Yeah, we had a dispatch for, I don't remember exactly how it came in, a commercial alarm or smoke investigation, but long story short, we needed to get access to the roof to look at the HVAC units and other things. And we got up there, but it took quite a bit of work. Right. Having a staff truck company will allow us to do that much more efficiently. Yeah.
And Chief, I just want to wrap up today's episode by reading a quote that I see often and I just love. And that is, the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. And I think that's just a good quote to end this episode with because we've covered so much. And I just want to reiterate that Amador Fire is so committed to fostering leadership at every level within our department. We are committed to giving the members of our department the tools they need to succeed, to be successful in whatever direction they choose to go, and to continue to serve Amador County with pride for years to come.
No, you're right. And I think leadership is its own topic, but just to kind of wrap this up, for myself, especially as fire chief, I don't own this job. Right. I'm just a custodian of this position. I heard that from other fire chiefs, and I latched onto it. I think that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. There's a finite amount of time that I'll be in this role, and I need to do my best while I'm here. Mm-hmm. Part of me doing my best is some succession planning at all ranks. Mm-hmm. Preparing BCs to be fire chiefs, captains to be battalion chiefs, engineers to be captains, so on and so forth. One of the things that I did right away when I got here was we held a company officer academy just for our fire captains. Mm-hmm. Focused a lot of energy the first year with our battalion chiefs and our captains and trying to bring them together, getting them on the same page, speaking the same language. And we've had a lot of success in that. Mm-hmm. Now we're expanding that. And I was just on the phone while you were setting up regarding our company officer academy for this year, which will include our engineers. And in our department, our engineers fulfill a lieutenant role. They're the company officer when captain's off duty. Mm-hmm. So we're prepping them to not only lead in their current rank, but lead was a promote. Right. And
that's all part of setting people up for success. And when you do that, you're setting people up not only for success, but confidence in their job. And I think, not speaking for any other departments, but that's something that Amador Fire really has a passion for, is making sure, like you keep talking about, that we're qualified to do this job. And with qualified comes, confidence and being able to run their own crews and know what to do at a moment's notice, because that's what this job is.
It is. It all boils down to serving the community. And what the community calls us for is to help them out when they're desperate for help, right? In their time of need. Mm-hmm. And we need to be prepared, operationally efficient. There's a whole lot of things that come into play there. But yeah, I agree with you. And I too am excited of where we're headed and where we've been. And I think Amador Fire has got a very bright future. Certainly there's a lot of challenges ahead of us, but together we can meet those challenges and overcome them. Mm-hmm. A lot of the questions I get from our line staff, and one of the reasons for this podcast, and I appreciate you facilitating this, a lot of the questions I get are because there's some communication challenges internally. And I think that's always going to be a challenge for us. And, our newsletter, our monthly Zoom calls, our podcast, so on and so forth, those are all ways that we can overcome that challenge and communicate, certainly with our internal members, but our external members and customers as well. And I'm excited about that.
And we have a wealth of important topics to explore in future episodes. And I'm truly excited about the journey ahead with this podcast. And as we've discussed, the purpose of this podcast is to keep both our community and our department members informed about all the initiatives and progress we're making. This platform, I'm hoping, will help maintain open communication, foster transparency, and keep everyone engaged with the work that Amador Fire is doing. We're eager to deep dive into multiple topics like we keep saying, and I look forward to sharing even more insights with all of you soon.
Didn't even touch on our wellness program. There's a lot to cover for sure. And I look forward to you bringing other members in and interviewing them just like this. I think that's going to be very effective and valuable.
Right.
And I'm excited for it.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to the next episodes.
Great job.
And that wraps up Season 1, Episode 1 of the C.A.N Report. A huge thank you to our Fire Chief, Robert Withrow, for sharing his vision for 2025. Remember, Amador Fire is more than a department. We're your neighbors, your first responders, and your community partners. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, safety tips, and more behind-the-scenes stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay prepared.